Beta blockers are a class of medications that diminish or block the effect of adrenaline or noradrenaline on the sympathetic nervous system. They are used clinically for certain things like hypertension, heart failure, angina, dysrhythmias. The aim of this particular video is to firstly define what beta blockers are, to classify them, so what are the different categories of beta blockers, their clinical uses, and finally, what are some of the common adverse effects associated with beta blockers. Now, before we continue on with defining what they are, I think what we should do is a quick refresh of our understanding of the sympathetic nervous system. So we know within our nervous system, we have a sensory component and a motor component. With the motor component, we have an autonomic section of the motor nervous system, which is all about regulating automatic things within the body. Within that autonomic nervous system, we have a parasympathetic arm and a sympathetic arm. The parasympathetic arm of the motor nervous system is about looking after the body in its resting state. So rest, digest, taking things slowly. The other arm is the sympathetic nervous system. So this is the fight, this is the flight, this is the fright system. Also known as the 3 E's: emergency, excitement, exercise. So we're going to focus on that particular part of the nervous system. When we are in this state, so let's say we're exercising or we're hyper excited, there are certain parts of the body that are stimulated. So if we were to look at the heart, in the fight and flight, in the sympathetic reaction, we would expect the heart rate to go up, faster in speed, more powerful to pump blood around the body. We have the kidneys releasing renin, which is important to bump up blood volume and blood pressure. Blood vessels, some blood vessels will dilate, some will constrict, depending on where we want blood to go. Pupils will dilate to get bigger, to let more light into the eye, to give us more light stimuli to what's happening around us. The lungs will bronchodilate to let more air in, and our liver would be pumping out glycogen as glucose to help with producing energy as ATP. So with the sympathetic nervous system, all these organs are activated. They're activated by the use of neurotransmitters known as catecholamines. The neurotransmitter in the sympathetic nervous system is noradrenaline or adrenaline, sometimes known as epinephrine and norepinephrine, but we'll use noradrenaline just for today. So noradrenaline is thrown onto these organs to tell them to be activated. Now, the way that they can particularly respond to noradrenaline is through receptors. In the sympathetic nervous system, the receptors that receive noradrenaline, they're known as adrenoreceptors, which could be either alpha or beta, but for today, we're just going to focus on beta receptors. So quickly, let's look at the different beta receptors on these organs. The heart, we know we have one heart. So the easy way to remember is the heart has the beta-1 receptor. When noradrenaline binds to the beta-1 receptor to the heart rate will go up, the power of contraction will go up, the conductivity through the heart will go up. So the heart's going to become more efficient. The kidneys, at least with the juxtaglomerular apparatus, has beta-1 receptors, which when noradrenaline binds to it, it tells it to release renin. Renin activates the renin-angiotensin system, and that helps to regulate blood volume and blood pressure, or at least bump it up. In blood vessels, more so beta-2. So the blood vessels that are activated with beta-2, with noradrenaline, is going to be arterial blood vessels to the heart, these are the coronary vessels, and blood vessels to the skeletal muscles to bring more blood to your skeletal muscles as you're exercising or running away from danger. The pupil would be beta-2, so noradrenaline onto beta-2 at the eye would cause the dilation of the pupil to let more light in. Lungs, also beta-2, and noradrenaline on the beta-2 receptors in the lungs, bronchodilation, more air into the lungs. And then finally, liver, also beta-2, that's to break down glycogen, release glucose to make energy. So that's all the beta receptors through the body. Now that is when it's activated. But what we're doing today is we're blocking it. So we're an antagonizing system. So we're actually blocking these effects, okay? And this takes us to the beta blockers. So we know what they are, let's classify them. So the way we can classify beta blockers is through their selectivity to where we want it to actually work. Usually, when we talk about beta blockers, we're referring to its effect on the cardiovascular system. So just keep that in mind. But the first group, so this is the first generation of beta blockers, these are known as non-selective, which means they don't do a good job of distinguishing between beta-1 and beta-2. So they're going to kind of block both effects. Before I go on, the one thing I want to draw your attention to is beta blockers, they all end with a suffix of olol or lol. So just keep that in mind, lol. they're all going to end with lol. Maybe remember lol sounds like low, and remember we're targeting the cardiovascular center, so it's going to lower, generally going to lower heart rate output and also blood pressure. So let's have a look. The first one is propranolol. Propranolol is a non-selective beta blocker, so it's going to affect the heart and some other regions that we spoke about. So primarily what it's going to do is it's going to slow down the heart rate. So it's going to bring down the heart rate. As we know, when we decrease heart rate, we also decrease cardiac output. And when we decrease cardiac output, we decrease blood pressure. So one of its first clinical uses is blood pressure. So clinical uses as an anti-hypertension medication. Okay? Another thing that propranolol will do is because it's slowing down the heart, it gives it more chance to fill and therefore a more powerful beat. And so propranolol can be useful in making the heart more efficient in its pumping. So it can be used in certain cases of heart failure, particularly when the heart failure is compensated well. By making the heart more efficient, it also decreases the demand of oxygen on it. That means the heart kind of isn't so demanding of oxygen, therefore blood flow to its own muscle. Therefore, it can be used in certain cases where we have ischemic injury or ischemic problems to the heart. This could be in cases of angina, so it can be also used in angina, or after a myocardial infarction. So after an MI, it can be also useful. By regulating the conductivity through the heart, it may be also being used as a form for dysrhythmias. So just to reiterate there, propranolol, because of its profound effect at the heart, is quite a useful medication for anti-hypertension, heart failure, particularly in stable forms of heart failure, angina, so stable angina, or after or during an MI, or in certain cases of dysrhythmia. Because propranolol can cross over into the brain, into the central nervous system, it can also have an effect on blood vessel and the way the blood vessels dilate and constrict, so it can be also useful in migraines or preventing migraines. When we go to another one, which is also non-selective, called timolol, this one is quite useful with activating or blocking the beta-2 receptors in the eye if it's used topically, and that's useful for regulating the pressure at the front of the eye, which is known as, particularly when it's high, for glaucoma. Before I leave the non-selectives, one important thing I'll draw to your attention is because we're also blocking beta-2 receptors, a big drawback is its effect at the lungs. So this is going to be one of its adverse effects that you need to be cautioned to. So if we normally see when we activate beta-2 receptors with noradrenaline, we expect bronchodilation, but we're blocking it, so we're going to see the opposite. So an adverse effect associated with propranolol or the non-selectives is bronchoconstriction. Now, with the adverse effects, an easy way to remember, because we're referring to a lot of Bs here, adverse effects, the 4 Bs. So there are 4 main adverse effects that start with B. There's the first one, bronchoconstriction. Another one I'll draw your attention to is the effect at the liver. As we spoke about, we've got a beta-2 receptor there in the liver. When we activate that with noradrenaline, we release glucose. We break down glycogen and release glucose to help regulate blood sugar levels. But because we're blocking it, we're going to have a problem with blood sugar. So I'll put that there, blood sugar, particular being low. Now, for most people, this is probably not so much of an issue. But for diabetics, where they already have a problem regulating their blood sugar, if you're dampening the release of glucose from the liver, so it's going to be low, when we have a low blood sugar, so hypoglycemia, what would we expect to see as a compensation? The sympathetic nervous system being activated. So this is why we kind of become tachycardic, so our heart rate goes up, we become cold and clammy, and we have certain sympathetic responses. But because we're blocking it, we're going to have a diminished response to low blood pressure, and this could be problematic for diabetics. So that's another adverse effects just to be mindful of. Now I want to shift to the selectives. So this is the second generation of beta blockers. What these ones do differently to the non-selective is they are selective to beta-1. So they're only going to focus on the beta-1 receptors, not the beta-2. So we're less likely to get the adverse effects, particularly with the lung issue that we saw with propranolol. So these could be useful medications with getting the side effects associated with blocking beta-2. But in most cases, they're going to do very similar things to the non-selectives, just less side effects, at least in a lower dosage. So atenolol and metoprolol are quite useful drugs with these, particularly as antihypertensives. Finally, we'll move to another form of non-selectives, but these are a bit different to the non-selectives here. Where we saw the non-selectives here, these would be beta-1 and beta-2 blockers. Selectives would be more just for beta-1, that's why they're usually known as cardiac selective, whereas these non-selectives, at least an example here called carvedilol, would be beta-1, but also alpha-1. So alpha-1 we haven't really spoke about, but the one thing I will say about the alpha-1 receptors, they're usually located on blood vessels. And so when you activate alpha-1 with noradrenaline, it usually constricts blood vessels as a majority. We know that when we constrict blood vessels, that's going to increase peripheral vascular resistance and increase blood pressure. So we actually want to block that. So these form of non-selective beta blockers, so this is the third generation, such as carvedilol, these are going to be quite good with blood pressure because we're not only dilating blood vessels in the body through the alpha-1 effect, but we're also going to block the beta-1 effect, which we saw here with drop in heart rate and cardiac output. So that's quite a good medication as an antihypertensive. So there we kind of have it for the clinical uses. For the categories, we've seen three kind of broad categories. We've seen the clinical uses being antihypertensives for heart failure, angina, post-MI, and dysrhythmias. Just to finish off with the adverse effects, other adverse effects you would expect to see, we've got to complete the B's, is bradycardia. So in some cases, too much beta blocking is going to slow down the heart too much, particularly if the heart is already damaged through certain ischemic injury, and that could lead to potentially problems with the heart being too slow, and therefore you might get certain heart blocks. Another one would be decompensating heart failure. So I'll put here bad heart. So this is just referring to if you're having a decompensated heart failure, so your patient has let's say a really low heart rate, or they're developing edema in the legs or in the lungs, you may not want to give beta blockers because they are decompensating their heart failure. So that's the 4 Bs. A few other ones just to add on the side for good measure is because we're potentially blocking blood vessels to skeletal muscles, therefore we're not getting the dilation of blood to skeletal muscles, we're actually going to constrict it. That means in some patients, when they're exercising, they may start to get fatigued. So exercise fatigue, I know it's not a B, but I'll put fatigue there because we're not getting good blood flow to muscles, therefore you're not being able to exercise well. And another one is because we're potentially constricting blood to the peripheries and we may start to get cold extremities. So that could be another adverse effect associated with beta blockers. So there we have it. Hopefully now, from this video, we understand what beta blockers are. We know where in the nervous system they're working, and therefore when we block them, what we expect, how to classify them, how they're generally used basically in the cardiovascular pathologies, and then finally, what are some common adverse effects just to be cautioned or aware of.